Okay, here we have the wrong kind of willow. And just for comparison, pull off one of these stems. Now if the leaves were on it, it would be obvious that the leaves were bigger and so on, but at the time of year you're picking for whole shoot bark on stuff in the wintertime, it's just the buds. And you can, if you look at the buds on the basket willow compared to the not basket willow, I'm not sure which species this is, you can see how much bigger the buds are on those. And if we were to cut this through, let's see what the pithy center is, just not a whole lot bigger, but just enough bigger. And these don't tend to be as long and whippy. So they're shorter, a little fatter, and the buds are a little bit bigger. And this one is fairly close to being the right stuff. A lot of the other ones are even more obviously different than this one is. So there's a comparison. Okay, now if you wanted to have willow that you were going to peel and have white stems, or if you were going to split it and you wanted the bark off so that it was white, we'd harvest later. We'd harvest when the buds have started to pop out and form leaves, and then the bark will peel off really easily, but it's still got the hard outer coat on it. It hasn't really had time to grow, but the sap has risen, there's a lot of moisture in it, and then we can peel them and make them white. So for simple whole shoot baskets, work baskets, carrying baskets, they would use these winter picked whole shoots with the bark on. For the finer baskets and baskets where you wanted the white color, you'd pick in the springtime. So seasonality is a big issue. So you harvest depending on which kind of basket you're going to be making. Once you harvest these, before you would normally use them, you'd dry them out. And for the finest baskets, you dried material for up to a year to make sure it had completely shrunken down. And then you would prepare it, size it down, and soak it just enough to be flexible enough to weed. Because you want to get all the moisture out of the basket, because it shrinks when it dries. And so for simple work baskets, I could use this fresh green stuff. They would hold together quite well. I could let it dry for a week or two until it was still just barely flexible, and then use it. Or I can dry it and soak it for about 4 days, and then that'll make it flexible again, but it won't have completely swelled up. Because there's cell water that's inside each cell, and then there's water that's in between the cells that's running up and down the stem. When you dry it, you get out both kinds of water. When you re-soak it, you only get the water that's in between the cells, so it doesn't swell up nearly as much. So preparing your materials is more than half the battle. And whole shoot stuff, picking and harvesting doesn't take much time compared to weeding the basket. But when you start getting into the baskets that are made with prepared material, it can be as much as 2/3 of the time of making the basket can be in harvesting and preparing the materials. So there's an old saying that once you're ready to start weaving, you're over halfway down. So remember the right type of willow at the right time of the year, without bugs, and off the right part of the plant so that it's usably long and flexible.